Good afternoon. This is the October 8th, 2024. Regular meeting of the City Council. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Harmon.
Here.
Councilmember Oscar Gutierrez.
Present.
Councilmember Friedman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jordan.
Here.
Councilmember Sneddon.
Here.
Councilmember Alejandro Gutierrez.
Here.
Mayor Rouse.
Here. And we have a ceremonial item to read.
Yes, we have item 1, subject Family History Month, October 2024.
Good.
Okay, it's Family History Month, October 2024. Whereas encouraging family history research and sharing that knowledge from generation to generation can be an enriching and rewarding experience for young and old and builds a commitment to family, home, and community. And whereas the study of family history gives individuals a sense of their heritage and sense of responsibility in carrying out the legacy that their ancestors began. And whereas the treasured records that detail the history of our families can be found within the libraries, genealogy centers, historical societies, and archives around the world, and whereas more than 100 million individuals from across the United States, including thousands in Santa Barbara County, have embarked on genealogical journeys by discovering who their ancestors were and how the various forces shaped their lives and our past. And whereas the Santa Barbara County Genealogical Society, established in 1972, assists individuals from all backgrounds in discovering, documenting, sharing, and preserving their family histories, and operates the Sayun Genealogical Library, which is open to the public for research at 316 Castillo Street in Santa Barbara. Now, therefore, I, Randy Rouse, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Santa Barbara, do hereby proclaim October 2024 as Family History Month in the city of Santa Barbara and encourage all community members to observe the month with activities celebrating their family history. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Ted Myers, and I am the president of the Santa Barbara County Genealogical Society. I've met some of you before, and thank you for your support. You have a busy agenda today, and we thank you for the recognition. Our organization is dedicated to helping and supporting community members in discovering their family roots. We believe this is important work because it helps people better understand who they are and where they come from. Family history is a part of social history, which is a part of history as our community and a nation. As such, when we explore the history of our ancestors, we connect our own lives in a very personal way with the great events that have shaped who we are today. Researching your family history is not always easy, despite what some of those marvelous programs like Finding Your Roots and Discovering Who Do You Think You Are may lead you to believe. Yes, these are wonderful tools like Ancestry.com, DNA, artificial intelligence, but it takes a lot of time consuming detective work, and believe it or not, researching records and verifying the identities of distant ancestors can be fun, though even addictive. Our society maintains a wonderful collective of over 16,000 volumes and digitized records at the Sayun Library on Castillo Street related to family history. In addition, we have over 500 members of our genealogy society helping each other and every day by teaching classes, taking field trips, coaching beginners, and putting on events like Picnic in the Cemetery. We have some handouts for you about Family History Month events at the Sayun Library this month. We invite you and the community to join us. Thank you for this recognition today.
Thank you. Ms. McAdoo, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move to the consent calendar. Mr. Clerk, do you have some items to read?
Yes, I have item 3, subject amending municipal code section 17.08.010 pertaining to harbor patrol powers and duties, and section 17.08.040 pertaining to carrying of firearms in the harbor, ordinance introduction. Recommendation that council introduce and subsequently adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the council of the city of Santa Barbara amending municipal code section 17.08.010 pertaining to powers and duties of harbor patrol, and section 17.08.040 pertaining to carrying firearms in the harbor. And we have item 4, subject amendment to position salary control resolution 24-071 with updates to classification and compensation for certain positions resolution. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara amending resolution 24-071, the position salary control resolution for fiscal year 2025, to amend the established salary for positions as listed and to establish classifications as listed effective October 5th, 2024.
Very good. And there are items that anyone needs to pull from council. Mr. Clerk, any online?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, very good. In that case, I will entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Moved by Friedman. Second by Harmon. May we have the vote, please?
This vote is to move the balance of the consent calendar. Motion by Councilmember Freeman, seconded by Councilmember Harmon. Go ahead and vote, please.
Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Very good. We'll go from that. We'll go to the report from the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today at Finance, we talked about slight changes on the library fees, and the recommendation was passed at Finance, and it'll be coming to council very soon. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll move to council member committee assignment reports. Does anyone have a committee? Ms. Snedden.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. I attended Kachuma Conservation Release Board, and we heard updates on a Bureau of Reclamation is doing a value study on fish passage above Bradbury Dam. It will take over a year to complete the study, but we heard an update.
Okay. Any further committee assignment reports? All right. Very good. We'll go to general public comment. This is for 3 minutes at the podium on anything that's not on today's agenda, but within the purview of this body. And we'll start out with Clint Orr. Mr. Orr, I saw him earlier, doesn't appear to be here. Okay. With that, I'll go to Steve Johnson.
My name is Steve Johnson, 52-year resident of the city of Santa Barbara. I have a PhD in mathematics. My concern is subgrade parking in the floodplains. You've heard me speak about this before. I will be back for the next 5 weeks prior to November 19th to get my additional 3 minutes each week because the process is flawed. I made my statements and the applicant inundated you with 97 pages of documents. It also inundated me. Council wisely suggested that you postpone further deliberation of this issue, but my issue is buried.
Mr. Johnson, let me interrupt you just 1 minute there. Madam Attorney, are we going back into exhibits for the issue that's already, the hearing's been continued?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are not taking further public comment on that particular project. If the speaker has comments on the matter in general, not that particular project, that's fine.
So if you could refrain from talking about that particular project, Mr. Johnson, I'll let you continue.
Thank you. The Planning Commission just approved subgrade parking under a hotel located at 21 West Montecito Street. I have appealed that approval. My request today is that you somehow find time to read my written comments. That's what I asked. Just somehow find time. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Dave Davis. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave Davis, you're on item 6. That's not general. Never mind. Mr. Clerk, are there anyone online?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, very good. Mr. Orr, I've called you already, but if you'd like to come up, here's your chance.
Mayor Rouse, council members, of course, I'm Matthew Clint Orr. I'm in the process of putting together a couple of horse polo teams right now that will affect my ability to operate my nonprofit centers, which are the Coast Village Nonprofit Center and the San Ynez Valley Nonprofit Center. So I'm looking at one team, a men's team in Carp, and a women's team up on baseline at the 154. And we'll do a TV show at the same time. So it should be something that helps me to create income for my nonprofits. Okay, I want to get back real quick, and you don't necessarily want to hear it, to the presidential situation, Trump versus Harris. As an independent, I am not going to quit. I'm going to step it up and see if I can get more votes than them. Very troublesome to have an ex-president with as many things that I don't disrespect him, but I worry about where we're going with that. Are we going to get into, you know, a little civil war? So I'm a little worried about that. And Harris never got more than 10% of the Democratic vote. She lost in 2020. She's appointed the President of the United States. This doesn't sound like an election that is fair. The electoral vote was determined 3 years ago. There was going to be Trump versus Biden, and then Biden hands it to Harris. Now, she doesn't have, in my opinion, a big pedigree. Her parents were foreign born. That's fine. No problem with that. Now, I run as an independent. My parents were born in Oklahoma. I'm a cowboy Indian. My grandmother was born in Indian Territory in 1880, not my great-grandmother. So I really have to step up, and I'm going to do that. I wish to be the vice president, not the president. So I have some people that may be significant that will run with me, and we'll see what we can do. Right now, there's voting in 5 states. It's rigged. I mean, it upsets me. So I'm going for it the next 4 weeks, and you can count me in, Coach. I'm doing it. You'll see. I'm going to get a president right away. I got a couple candidates that I'm talking to. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. And once again, Mr. Clerk, there's no one online waiting to speak on general public comment? That's correct. Okay, very good. With that, we'll close general public comment, and we'll move to the item 6. If you read that item, please, for us.
Item 6, subject an ordinance for approval of lease agreement and revocable license agreement with Santa Barbara International Film Festival, Inc. for the property located at 916 State Street. Ordinance introduction. Recommendation that council introduce and subsequently adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara approving and authorizing the Public Works Director to execute a 5-year lease plus a 25-year renewal term lease with Santa Barbara International Film Festival, Inc., quotes SBIFF, for the city-owned property located at 916 State Street, commencing upon the effective date of the enabling ordinance and approving and authorizing the Public Works Director to execute a separate revocable license agreement granting SBIFF the ability to enter and use the property prior to the commencement of the initial lease term.
Thank you. Mr. Doimus.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. We're very excited to be here today. We think it's a very momentous occasion in terms of talking about the lease of the property at 916 State Street with the Santa Barbara Film Festival. Before we start, I do want to acknowledge many people with this effort. Ms. Minter and Ms. Connect obviously is part of the city attorney's negotiating team. Ms. McAdoo in terms of helping this process through, as well as Public Works, Ed France and Sarah Clark, who have been really helpful on this. I would be remiss not to thank the film festival themselves, who will be speaking shortly as part of this presentation, Mr. Pratt and Mr. Derling. And of course, you also, as well as City Council too, for helping us through the parameters and the vision you sought and that we'll be discussing today. And finally, Mayor, Mr. Derling has class at 3 o'clock, so you're in charge of making sure he gets there on time. And every minute he's late, there's an education code. You're responsible for tuition reimbursement. So. All right, so first we want to talk about the property at 916 State Street. It's configured as a movie theater. It's a little over 20,000 square feet. It actually was constructed 1976. MTC moved in there in 1977. And they've been operating that whole period of time. Its last significant remodel occurred in 2005, so we're talking almost 20 years ago. We do want to thank the Corwin family for their longstanding lease and their tenancy with the city. We really appreciate their contributions to the city. The most recent lease with the Metropolitan was entered in about 20 years ago, in 2004, in November. They had several options to extend the lease for 5 years from that original lease. The most recent option was not exercised by Metropolitan. So that made the property essentially open for, another tenant. The lease expired last week on September 30th, 2024. So when we looked at this property that was available space to rent out, the city council appointed a negotiating team out of the city attorney's office, Ms. Minter, Ms. Connect, and myself. And we recognized there were some issues in terms of, that limited our potential or the potential bidders out there. First, it was configured as a movie theater. There's no windows there, et cetera. So it's 5 movie theaters in that spot. Second of all, another huge limitation is that it needs significant upgrades. It needs a new HVAC system. If you're going to do extensive remodel, which you need, it would require probably triggering a new sprinkler system, flooring, paint. And those are large upfront costs for the city, which would further limit the options in terms of the economic state that we're in. And another consideration when we're looking at these, besides the limitations, is recognizing the importance of this project. It's an important location. It's in the heart of downtown. It's a large property. And an area in terms of that block in terms of need of revitalization. And looking at that, what can we do to connect the community with that space? So these are all the kind of considerations that were swirling in terms of looking at what we wanted to do or who we wanted to rent that space out to. As you see on the screen here, some pictures recently through a walkthrough in terms of the current conditions of the property. Movie theaters always look different when the lights are on versus when they are off. And then here's the map of the lease area. What's not part of this lease is the 2 storefronts that are occupied by the businesses of the Cookie Cutter and 805 University. Cookie Plug, thank you. Cutter would make more sense. But anyway, and there's 5 cinemas there right now in the theater. The most recent Theater 5, I think, was put in about 25, 30 years ago. So with these kind of issues that I mentioned that were at play in terms of, who would be the most suitable, perfect tenant, the film festival came to the forefront. And there's several reasons for that. First of all, there have been a vital cog in this community, long-standing for 40 years as a nonprofit, showcasing the best in independent and international cinema for the community. Their mission just goes to the ethos of what we're looking at, to engage, enrich, and inspire the Santa Barbara community through film. They've had their long-standing 11-day film festival that brings over 100,000 visitors to the downtown area and the economic boost that it comes with. And most importantly, they've done this before. In 2016, they acquired the Riviera Theater and raised capital campaign funds of $6 million to renovate that movie and bring a state-of-the-art theater. And so seeing they were able to do that once, knowing their roots here and their reputation, they made the perfect pairing to give the tenancy over to the film festival. I want to go over the major terms of the lease. Its initial 5-year term with an additional 25 years. And that's all predicated upon the film festival's commitment to raise $15 million in funds to be dedicated for that project, both in remodeling it extensively for what's needed, as well as for, future upkeep of the building as the lease goes on. A 30-year lease is needed because if you're going to raise and ask donors for $15 million, you can't show a 2 or 3 year lease. You need to show a strong commitment and 3 decades is that. Their renovations, as I will discuss, will be significant, installing new state-of-the-art equipment, audio, visual, new comfortable seating, upgrades in terms of ceilings, walls, seats, lobby, box office, restrooms, you name it. And they will be responsible for any of the repairs or upgrades interior. The city, though, with its building, is responsible for the exterior, which would include the roof. And the film festival would cover all utilities as part of this lease. And on the screen there you have is the monthly base rent. The first year is the lowest, and there's a deferral period of 6 months of entire rent, and the remaining 50%. And the basis for this is that they need to get in there and do start, a lot of the bulk of the renovation will be occurring that time. So we thought it would be only fair to have deferrals and the reduced costs during that first year while they're going through that, but still operating. And you see as the years progress, the rent kicks in, and starting year 6, goes from $16,500 to $25,000, and that would be when the 25-year extension would kick in. There would be a CPI adjustment every 3 years on top of that base rent. So the numbers you see there aren't flat; they would change over the progression of this lease based on the CPI index. And finally, after year 6, once they're in there, after hitting an $800,000 revenue mark, there would be a percentage rent of 5% the city would receive for on-site concession sales. And finally, one of the most exciting aspects of this is what the film festival presents, what they do for the community. And here's an example, and I'll let them, of course, talk more on that. But here's some of the commitments that they have done, have been doing, and will continue to do. There's the Apple Box Family Films that's every Saturday during the summer that gathers family and providing free refreshments to show a modern classic of animated films. They do a Santa Barbara filmmaker series that showcases the first Thursdays of a local filmmaker. They have Mike's Field Trip to the Movies, reaching over 4,000 underserved low-income elementary school students each year throughout Santa Barbara County. And also, as part of this lease, is showing a commitment to showcasing social justice films and so on. So we're really excited. I'll let the film festival speak more on this, but that's a unique aspect that you would get instead of saying, a large corporation or box office theater versus something local. We're getting local films, and we're getting commitment in terms of showing social justice films, et cetera. And that's really key as part of this, ingratiating them as part of the community. And then finally, part of the packet to approve today is a license agreement. As you know, the lease, is being approved via ordinance, so it won't become effective until 30 days after the adoption today. But we wanted to create a bridge, an ability for them to be able, for the film festival to be able to come in, do the work necessary, start renovations, and so that license agreement, it's not any rent, it just allows them access to start work on it, providing temporary seating, providing temporary equipment to show films. The film festival will talk more, but some of the hope is that potentially they can do enough renovations that they'll be able to open to the public and show films on November 15th. Which is, tremendous an accomplishment considering this lease expired on September 30th to actually have a tenant in there making some renovations and being able to show some films only 6 weeks later. And with that, we'll go to the action after at the end, but I will turn it over to Mr. Pratt and Mr. Durling.
Mr. Durling.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for this amazing opportunity, and I need to say thank you also to John, and Heather, and Sarah for this opportunity. In 1985, 40 years ago, the festival is celebrating 40 years. The city was looking to boost tourism in the slow winter months and wanted festivals. And Phyllis DiPicciotto, the founder of the film festival, applied and received a $20,000 grant from the city of Santa Barbara to start the Santa Barbara Film Festival. There were many founders that first year, including Bruce Corwin, who also donated his theaters for free. The first festival was 3.5 days. They screened 48 movies, and about 7,000 people attended that first year. Today, we, on an average, have over 500 volunteers alone and over 100,000 attendees. We're 11 days and 200 plus films. Our growth has been steady. 8 years ago, we remodeled and opened, as John mentioned, and run the extremely successful state-of-the-art Riviera Theater, where we showcase films year-round. The Riviera is considered to be one of the best art houses in the country. I just don't like banging my drum too, so like bear with me. The Riviera had proved, as John mentioned, that we could do an endeavor like we're about to do. Since education is at the forefront of everything decision that we make, we also have an education center across the Arlington Theater on State Street, which houses our year-round educational programs, which are very robust and happen to be our pride and joy. The education center becomes essential during the main festival, as it becomes our box office, our volunteer, our hospitality desk, while continuing to welcoming our students. Since our inception 40 years ago, we have dreamed big, and the city of Santa Barbara has supported our dreams and has supported the SBIFF every step of the way. And for that, we're extremely grateful. Today, the Film Festival is one of the top 10 film festivals in the United States. That's not me saying, I'm quoting what other people say about us. We are known for attracting audiences that typically gravitate toward the entertainment hubs of New York and Los Angeles. SBIFF audiences engage with our programs daily, so much so that the popularity of the programming at the Riviera Theater has emboldened us to pursue a long-held vision, a film center in downtown Santa Barbara. With the acquisition of this long-term lease of 916 State Street, SBIFF will significantly expand upon the elevated cinematic experience that the Riviera Theater provides for filmgoers. In the coming year, the property on 916 State Street will be transformed into a state-of-the-art film center. The space will be a central hub for our annual film festival and a vibrant year-round destination that will foster dialogue, education, and community with a commitment to presenting diverse social, political, historical, and cultural realities. To deliver a top-tier and immersive experience for all visitors, the entire facility will be upgraded to ensure safety, functionality, and enhanced comfort. This includes new seating, sound, projection system, and modern heating and air conditioning throughout. We will have 5 auditoriums, and this film mecca, if you pardon me calling it this film mecca, will showcase a diverse range of films and programming. Unlike commercial cinemas that emphasize high-grossing Hollywood films, the Film Center's selections will be thoughtfully curated with special attention given to unique cinematic qualities, film history, and relevance to today's world. So we have 2 large auditoriums, Auditorium 1 and 2. Auditorium 1 and 2 will be committed to first-run American independent films, and Auditorium 2 will be international films. The third screen will run repertory selections, so old films, basically, Randy, translation. And we're going to be doing retrospectives. So like this summer, we did a Land Alone retrospective at the Riviera. And we've done in the past a Pedro Almodovar retrospective. We're going to be doing things like a Fellini retrospective, a Hitchcock retrospective, et cetera. That will be the third screen. The fourth screen will focus on documentaries, whether they're international documentaries or American-made documentaries, with a particular emphasis on social justice films. The fifth screen of the venue will show family programming, as well as animated features that appeal to an older crowd. The lobby, which used to have an arcade, will feature high-quality concessions, of course, showcasing local products and vendors, but an art gallery, which will be used to host regular film-related exhibits, whether it's a costume design exhibit or productions behind the scenes, et cetera, of productions related to film. This past summer at the Riviera, we showed for free 10 animated films every Saturday. We showed them in Spanish with Spanish subtitles and heavily promoted the program in Spanish media. We will run this free program plus refreshments for free from the new film center. We strongly feel that the Riviera Theater, although we were doing this programming for free, it felt a little more inaccessible and elitist, and downtown, more audience will have access to this type of programming. Every first Thursday, we showcase local Santa Barbara filmmakers for free at our education center. We will relocate this program, this popular and successful program, to the center. So every first Thursday, we will feature for free a local filmmaker open to the audience. New York City has a film center like this one that I'm describing. Our city deserves to have a place like this. The city in our downtown corridor deserves to have vibrancy and excitement. When I first moved to Santa Barbara, the reason why I moved here, and I love being here, was because the city was so incredibly exciting and vibrant. And for me to have seen the genesis of what has been happening has been heartbreaking. And we felt, because of that, we felt deeply inspired to do something, not talk about it, but actually do something about it. I would like to emphasize the pivotal role that the arts play in the success of any community, and that the film festival is thrilled, honored, humbled, and excited to do our part in the necessary revitalization of State Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pratt, do you have anything to add for that? Okay, very good. And Mr. Doymus, is that it for the presentation until we?
Honorable Mayor, City Council, yes, that concludes our.
Okay, very good. We'll bring it, we'll have some council questions here before public speaking. So if we can contain our enthusiasm, just ask some simple questions so Mr. Durley can get out of here on time, I'll entertain council questions. Is that? Okay, very good. Let's go then to public comments then, if we may. Let's go to Dave Davis.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of council. My name is Dave Davis. I have had the honor of serving as the chair of the State Street Advisory Committee, but today I'm speaking as an individual. For 3 years, I've sat with Roger Durling on the SSAC, and Roger was one of the more thought-provoking, visionary, and for me, extremely valuable members of that committee. But completing that task, it did not surprise me that Roger had to come and had to do something, and do something now, something which was going to be very exciting. So I'm pleased to see the proposal he's brought to you today. We've talked a lot about flat, flexible, and fun. Flat and flexible, this is fun, all right? And so I'm so glad to basically see this before you today. This proposal solidifies another major cultural anchor to downtown. Really very important to our vital element. And as Roger talked about, the arts being one of those economic generators. The film festival's decision to take on the downtown theaters and renovate them into a state-of-the-art film center is an enthusiastic vote of confidence in the future of our downtown. As a side note, when our daughter Nora was attending college, she worked at a similar downtown film center, the Gene Siskel Film Center in Chicago. Rogers probably knows that one. You may recall Gene Siskel shared a popular weekly movie review show with Roger Ebert, critics from rival Chicago newspapers. That facility has been in existence for over 30 years, highly successful, and brings so much excitement to the cultural fabric of Chicago. Since he arrived, Roger Durling's leadership of the film festival has contributed so much to advance cinematic culture here in Santa Barbara and introduce us to the world and vice versa. To that end, personally, I'd love to see this new facility named the Roger Durling Film Center. And using the Siskel and Ebert iconic rating system that you all know, I hope you give this downtown film center 2 thumbs up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Robin Elander.
Mayor and City Council and members of our community, I could not be more excited about this proposal today and what it can do for our entire community and downtown. I really want to show appreciation to Roger and the entire team at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival for not only what they're proposing today and the innovative arrangement that they're proposing with the city, but for all of their work that they have contributed to our community for many, many years, and the quality of work that they bring to our community, as well as mentioned for First Thursday, but the youth programming, the accolades I could go on for way more than 3 minutes, but I am very excited about what this can do for downtown, and thank you for all your work in putting this together in the city for exploring this rich opportunity. Thank you.
All right, very good. Mr. Clerk, are there speakers online for this item?
No speakers online, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, very good. And with that, we will come to council for comments. Or you can just do thumbs up if you'd like. I don't care. Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really excited about today. I think today is a historical moment for our city, and I want to congratulate the team, the entire team. You've done an amazing job, and I actually participated in a documentary that the film festival actually showcased, and it was the work that I was doing with At Promise Youth, and all of the youth and everybody that participated in that documentary is very involved in the community now. I worked in education for 20 years, and I can tell you that the families and children always enjoy coming to the movies because of the tickets that you provide to the school district, and it's amazing to be part of this community and part of this council that are giving the opportunity to the arts and acknowledge the work and just the value that your team brings. And Roger, thank you so much also as a Latino, because Latinos feel so part of the film festival every year, and you guys have done just an amazing job to represent the community. So thank you.
Ms. Snedden.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. I'm so excited. So this is indeed momentous. I'm very grateful to Roger Durling and Sean Pratt and the Film Festival Board also, who has shepherded this through. It's not just an important location downtown with the history, but it has the potential to again be more vital than it's ever been in its history. And I'm very excited for what this will bring. The film festival has a proven history of engaging, enriching, and inspiring, as is your mission. And I really want to emphasize all ages, all perspectives, all cultures, all languages. I can speak for the Riviera Theater has been a haven over the decades, has shown films, have affirmed identities in a town earlier in the 80s that wasn't always so welcoming of all identities of people self-identifying. And now at the Riviera Theater and through movies that are shown and that are continue to be shown, all members of our community can see themselves in beauty, in acceptance, in art, in the theater, and empowering social justice and inclusivity. And there's something just fundamental about what you bring and celebrate in our community that lets members of our community live out loud in a way that I don't think they would otherwise. I'm particularly grateful for the movies I've seen there. You've brought me and my family to tears, to laughter, inspired us to music and to art, to overcome our fears. The movie Daughters was one of the most impactful movies I've seen in my life, and you brought that. You brought many movies. You've brought us together, and it's not hyperbole to say that you've brought us life and understanding and hope. And I could not be more excited that you're going to bring that same inspiration to the heart of our downtown. And in a time when we have vacancies and places that are not being fully living to their potential, this doesn't just use the space to its full potential, it inspires our souls to their full potential. And that is, I think, what I'm most excited about, the social justice lens, the inclusive lens, just empowering all of us. I'm so grateful. It's been a fantastic 40 years, and I just can't wait to see the next phase. Thank you.
Mr. Friedman.
Well, first, thank you to the Film Festival, Mr. Durley, Mr. Pratt, all of you for your vision and leadership in bringing this to us. This doesn't just happen. It's a long thought out process, and it's amazing what it's going to become. And also want to thank our staff for working with them to bring this to us. It's the right moment at the right time for the investment in our city. And I want to just say this, that there's a lot of negativity that goes with downtown recently. But today is a momentous day, and in 3 weeks from now, the Library Plaza is going to reopen. So I am convinced by us taking this action in partnership with the Film Festival today that we are back up, going down. Downtown is going back up. We hit the trough probably about a year ago, and people might have missed it. But it is coming back now, and now we're going to be in a much better place than we are. And I'll conclude by this. I love Mr. Davis's comments referring Siskel and Ebert. A lot of times my kids or even members of the public, they come out to me and they say, what do you actually do on council? And I don't know how to answer it sometimes because it's complex, but I have a good answer now. In the future, I'm going to take my kids downtown or whoever's there, and I'll say, you know what I do? I gave this project 2 thumbs up.
Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just echo everything you've heard. I did no heavy lifting on this, but it just pleases me greatly to be able to approve it, and ranks right up there with other big projects that I've been part of the last 15 years in the city. The 900 block is a great example. It's been just beat up with vacancies and just an empty street, and it's a great example of when community members see life giving you lemons and turn it into lemonade and not just let that continue. So I think we say thank you to you. What I heard you do was call us a dream partner. We're saying yes to being your dream partners. I think it'll be great. And again, just shows how fortunate this community is with its community members that take a small, in the view of things, take a small little city and make it act like one with a big heart and big dreams and a big presence. So Thank you very much.
Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, everyone. I've known a lot of you for years now. Roger was one of my film professors before I was able to officially get my degree. And he's, I know you don't like getting too much praise, but you're definitely a role model for me, and you are one of the people that kind of got me to where I am today. And I'm not the only one that feels that way. I know you've got a long line of people that sing your praises, you know. And just like you paid it forward for the people that brought you to where you are today. And it's funny because when I got into politics, my friends told me, oh, you know, you're not going to have much time to do anything film related anymore. I'm like, well, here we are, you know. So I'm hoping that this will foster unknown amounts of future generations to be able to pursue a greater life. So thank you very much for what you do.
Ms. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have much more that I could possibly add to this chorus, but I could not let the opportunity pass me by to not say thank you and how excited I too am for this. You know, I used to live in New York City and spent so much time at IFC, and I remember how many conversations were generated from films that I saw there, both within and out. I was in school at the time, both in the classroom, out of the classroom, how it bonded me with the people that I saw those films with. And I'm so excited for that to grow in our community and for my kids to have access to a space like this. It's just an amazing thing. And I had to go on record saying thank you, 2 thumbs up. I can't wait to be voting yes. Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, let me check my notes here. Here, done. Do you have something, Ms. Nedden?
Oh, no, just
All right, very good. We have the motion on the action on the screen, and Ms. Nedden, would you like to?
Yes, I'd
Yeah, I
like
thought you
to
might.
propose the action.
Okay, that's the motion. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Gutierrez. Mr. Clerk, may we have the vote, please? This is going to be the biggest drama we've had all day.
All right, I have a motion from Councilmember Snedden and seconded by Councilmember Alejandro Gutierrez to adopt the recommendation made by staff. Go ahead and vote,
Could be a
please.
squeaker. Amazing, unanimous. So, Ms. McAdoo, why are all meetings like this? This would be a lot more pleasant. I mean,
You know, anytime we can garner applause in the council chambers is a good thing.
actually, this next item is pretty nice as well, I think. So, Mr. Clerk, can you read that into the record, please? Next item.
The item 7, Subject Access Advisory Committee, Annual Report.
All right, very good. And Mr. Demore, are you giving this presentation?
Yes, that's correct. Just trying to get this loaded up. All right, good afternoon, Mayor Rouse, members of the City Council. My name is Brian Demore, city engineer here with the City of Santa Barbara, but also the city's ADA coordinator, and it's in that role that I'm presenting to you today. This is an annual report that's given by the ADA coordinator on activities and achievements in my role as the staff liaison to the Access Advisory Committee, which is a 7-member council-appointed committee that advises staff on matters related to accessibility. Today's presentation, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview. I've done this in the past. I think it's helpful to continue to sort of refresh on the roles of the ADA coordinator, the purpose of the ADA transition plan, but also the Americans with Disabilities Act in general, an overview of that. So I'll be talking about that in the beginning, and then some information about the city's Access Advisory Committee before getting into some of the details, things that the committee has been up to in my work with them over the last year. So the Americans with Disabilities Act, that's a federal law that was enacted in 1990. It prohibits discrimination based on disabilities. It's divided into 5 titles, and the 2 primary titles of importance for a public agency like the City of Santa Barbara is Title I, Employment, and Title II, Public Services. So I'm going to be talking about each of those 2 titles in a little bit more detail. The other titles, Private Businesses, Telecommunications, and there's a 5th title, which is Miscellaneous. So Title I, Employment. This prohibits discrimination in hiring, recruitment, retention, advancement, compensation, all of those sorts of things. Think human resources when we talk about Title I. It also requires reasonable accommodations for employees with disabilities, and there's a requirement for confidentiality of information. Title II is regarding public services and programs, and this is a really important title for local, state and local government entities. Again, there's a requirement that discrimination based on disability is not allowed, so it requires that all city programs and services be inclusive and be made accessible. So in order to do that, there's an expectation that reasonable modifications be made in order to open up all programs and services to every individual. The title requires a look at physical constraints, physical accessibility of public facilities, and that's significant when we get into the ADA transition plan, which is also listed on this slide. The title requires effective communication, so any communication that we put out, whether it's our council agenda reports or a news release, all of those things must be accessible. The title defines the title of the ADA defines the ADA coordinator title and some of the roles and responsibilities there, and also establishes the requirements for an ADA transition plan. And it's those 2 items that I'm going to talk about in the next couple of slides. So the ADA coordinator, that's the role that I'm speaking to you on behalf of today. The requirements there are to oversee ADA compliance throughout the organization. So that includes some of those Title I employment type of things, as well as the Title II, which is more of the access to programs and services. Another important role is the managing of the ADA transition plan, and I will be talking a lot more about that in some upcoming slides. Also facilitating reasonable accommodations, that's associated with the ADA transition plan oftentimes, but to make sure that our programs and services are accessible. Public education and outreach, and associated with that, I'm part of the California ADA Coordinator Network, which is part of the Pacific ADA Center, and that's been a good resource for me to collect information on accessibility. We're kind of a mid-size agency, so it's good to connect with other ADA coordinators who perhaps work at a larger entity where that's their primary duty. So they're able to focus a lot more of their time on education and outreach, and being able to connect with them has been very helpful over the years. Another role for ADA coordinator is investigating and resolving complaints. This is part of the ADA grievance process. So the ADA transition plan, that was a requirement of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it's to ensure compliance with the ADA. The big thing is doing an assessment of all city facilities and identifying barriers to accessibility, and prioritizing which barriers need to be removed, creating a game plan basically for completing that work. There's a lot of community input and outreach that's required as part of that, and the city's been through that process. What we haven't done extremely well since it was originally drafted and then updated in 2007 is this documentation of progress, and I'll talk more about that later on in the presentation. So the Access Advisory Committee, they're created. It's, as I said before, it's a 7-member council-appointed committee. The majority of the AAC members do have a disability and reside in Santa Barbara. They're, per the resolution that forms them, they're tasked with promoting integration and participation of persons with disabilities, receiving input on the needs and concerns of the disabled community, establishing policies and practices and developing programs and services, serving as a stakeholder in the design, planning, and implementation of city projects and programs. We'll talk more about that later. Providing oversight for monitoring compliance with applicable codes, ordinances, and statutes, and providing advice regarding the setting of priorities for projects to improve access within the city's public rights-of-way, and finally, educating the public about disability and disability access issues. So one of the things that in my role as the ADA coordinator, working with the AAC, over the last couple of years, we've talked about recognizing individuals and entities within the community who've been doing really outstanding work to create enhanced opportunities for those with disabilities. And last year, when I presented, there were several that we recognized, and they wanted to do the same thing again this year. So the next few slides are for that purpose of recognizing a few entities, starting with the Grace Fisher Foundation. The Grace Fisher Foundation is dedicated to enriching the lives of individuals with disabilities through the transformative power of the arts. The foundation established the Inclusive Arts Clubhouse at La Cumbre Plaza in March 2023 and offers a diverse array of programs providing a whimsical and inclusive environment for individuals of all abilities to unleash their creativity. Thank you to the Grace Fisher Foundation for your work in our community. And Grace is here today in case, I don't know if council's interested in hearing from the foundation. She's here.
Grace, would you like to address council or anybody from your organization?
Well, I can speak from here perhaps, but yeah, thank you so much for this recognition. It's been super special just being in a super supportive community like Santa Monica. And I feel like just with our mission and with everything we do at the clubhouse, I feel like it wouldn't be possible without being in a community like Santa Monica. Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
All right. Next is this group called Cycling Without Age, Santa Barbara. This organization, which is backed by Move SB County, is part of a worldwide movement that aims to provide joy and vitality to older adults through the magic of the bicycle. And I really like what this organization is up to. Myself, I ride a bike every day, And it's just great to know that there's organizations out there trying to create those same opportunities for individuals who would be unable to do that. So through the AAC, I want to thank Cycling Without Age for your work in our community. And I don't know if Melissa Cunningham is here. Oh, okay. So if you want to hear from her, or if it's okay, she can come up.
If you'd like to come forward and give us a few words, that'd be great.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I both pilot and also help administratively with Cycling Without Age. And just on behalf of the organization and John Siegel-Baitner, who founded this incredible program, we're just really honored to be recognized and are excited that we're bringing joy to the community by helping elderly adults and people of all ages who can't ride a bike themselves. We give them that opportunity to have the wind in their hair and go out and see the world, see the community around them. So it's a really, really important program, and thank you so much for your recognition.
Yeah, thank you. I came to your event at the Libero. It was a sellout, which was amazing.
It was amazing,
Yeah.
And we've had, since then, so many calls for our program to be, people wanted in their facility, and lots of volunteers. So it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then lastly is Blind Fitness. Blind Fitness is dedicated to empowering people who are blind or have low vision through sports, recreation, and physical activity while educating the public of their abilities. Blind Fitness provides programs and services with the blind and low vision community that make fitness and recreational opportunities more accessible to people with low vision. And I think Brianna was unable to stick around, but we do have Bob Burnham here who's involved with Blind Fitness.
Come on up, Bob.
Mayor Rouse, members of the City Council, thank you for inviting me here. I am on the board. I serve on the board of Blind Fitness. We're brand new. We just incorporated 3 years ago. We just had our birthday on September 22nd. Brian, thank you for reading our mission statement. And I also am so honored to have served on the Access Advisory Committee for about 13 years before stepping aside last year to allow another wonderful member to join your committee. So thank you for allowing me to have that service. I suspect that each one of us here either is experiencing or knows a relative, a family member, a friend, a neighbor who is experiencing a challenge with vision loss. And so that's why we are in business to reach out to that whole population. I've been totally blind all my life, so I've had a whole lifetime of opportunity to adjust to be without sight. There are many people here who are struggling with that transition, and that's what we do. We have beach walks. We had a surf clinic in July. We participated in the Night Moves 5K walk in August. And coming up this Saturday, very exciting, we have our national once-a-year White Cane Day awareness event at Stearns Wharf, starting at East Beach. We'll have an accessibility walk. We'll have some activities before and after. We start at 9:30, and we'll even have a cornhole tournament with an audio beeper in the hole of the cornhole board. So and we're so grateful for all of our volunteers who join with us, participate with us, not only in providing transportation, but as guides and helpers. So if you know someone who's struggling with vision loss, send them our way. We're at blindfitness.org. Yeah, Brianna is our dashing CEO. She's a mobility instructor herself, teaches the use of the white cane. So, Brian, thank you for including us and nominating us as, we try to be inclusive. Not only do we serve people with visual impairments, but some people now have joined us who have accompanying disabilities, either mobility or cognitive. They have other disabilities besides visual impairments. So we really are hoping and trying to be inclusive in our efforts to serve this population. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, and now I'll move on to some of the highlights from the past year. I wanted to start off by just mentioning this principal architect position that was new in the last fiscal year to engineering, to the Public Works. And this position oversees most of our vertical, our building type construction, and it's been really helpful already to have him on staff and to oversee a lot of the work that is really associated more with building code compliance as opposed to the rest of Public Works, which is more right-of-way construction. And he's, Craig Schallenberger is the person in this position, and he actually just sat for the Certified Access Specialist certification on Monday. So the goal is to get him into the ADA coordinator role and can be more involved with building code compliance through the AAC. But that's a highlight that I wanted to share just briefly with the council. Next is work on the ADA transition plan, and the principal architect who I mentioned earlier, he's been leading that effort. I think every single Access Advisory Committee meeting, we meet quarterly, and we've had several ad hoc meetings with a few members of the committee in between. But I think every one of those meetings for the last year, the primary focus item has been the ADA transition plan. And we've really taken on a renewed effort to bring it back to life in a way, because it was developed initially with the ADA, it was refreshed in 2007, and it hasn't been maintained. And that was the important thing, was trying to keep it maintained. That original, or the most recent update from 2007, it had an emphasis on 9 priority locations, one of which is the existing police station. So we've been focused on the remaining 8 locations and trying to work with the data from 2007, and we brought in a CASP to go to those facilities and kind of log what's been done, what hasn't been done, and what we had to work with. I think this is helpful to highlight. If we go back to that 2007 plan and that document that we had, there were, I'll pull up the number here. Out of those 9 facilities, there were over 3,400 individual recommendations. So it is a humongous document with a lot of detailed items in it. But I felt like, since we're in council chambers, I pulled up photos, because there are photos of each of these things in that document. And you can see what's depicted here is the lectern at the time did not have a space for somebody who was in a wheelchair. You can see in the chambers now, we do have that. So that was done through the ADA transition plan. And then also another thing that was highlighted was the lack of seating available for a wheelchair, the companion type seating. And we can see in the council chambers now we do have that up front. Those are the kind of things that are identified in an ADA transition plan. But there's also a lot of detail, like signage, the height of the signage, just you can imagine with 3,400 items, it's a lot of different things. So this next slide sort of shows what that plan looked like for us. And we have it as a PDF, and it's not we can't really work with it in terms of sorting it or checking off what's been completed and what hasn't been completed. And that's what we're working to do, is to just really modernize the information that we have and make it so that we can work with it and keep it current. That's been the big effort over the past year, I think we're pretty close to that now. This next slide sort of shows where we're at. We've completed updated accessibility surveys at those 8 locations. We're still working on data conversion. We do need to record what has already been completed, and then we'll work with the committee to prioritize future work. The old plan, the 2007 plan, does have prioritization in it, so we have a good starting point, but we want to make sure that the AAC is on board with however we go about prioritizing the future work. Next is State Street. I want to mention a few things there. One thing that is unique with State Street is that the chair of the Access Advisory Committee actually has a formal role in the process that's been moving forward with State Street, some of the interim operations. So you all have probably seen Jim Marston up here presenting at times with Anthony Grumbine, who's the chair of the AAC. They each have a formal role in providing input to the council on what's happening on State Street. And a few things I wanted to highlight there, and I've been up here at council on this first one, the Granada loading zone. I wanted to give an update on that because we got feedback not only from the council but also from the Access Advisory Committee on the need to make sure that that was made accessible. So this here is just a sketch right now, but I wanted to highlight this. Right now we have a temporary ramp there, which is not what we want for the permanent. So we've gone to the HLC and gotten approval to go ahead with a new concrete ramp that would be fully accessible at that location. It's probably not going to happen, I don't want to overpromise, but it's probably not going to happen until early next calendar year. But we do have the design approval through the HLC at this location. And once we started to look at this location, we realized, well, we have other theaters with accessibility issues on State Street or in the vicinity of State Street. So rather than just stop there, we expanded our scope to include the Arlington, where there was one ramp at one of the crosswalks, but there's 2 crosswalks there at Arlington Ave. So this project would make those crosswalks fully accessible. And then also at the new Vic, that theater, there's similar to the Granada, there's a loading zone, a drop-off zone, but it's not accessible. So it's really unfortunate, especially in this case where it wasn't that old of a project, but it was not constructed in a way that would be made more accessible. So all 3 of those have been approved through the HLC and will be constructed in the coming months. So in addition to that, you all have heard from the chair of the AAC about some of the other issues on State Street, so I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on that, but just an opportunity to reiterate they are very interested in restoring some form of public transit onto State Street. And they have some concerns, as many members of the public do, about the e-conveyances, electric vehicles, not only bicycles, but all of the other types of mobility devices that are out there. They just have some concerns about that and how pedestrians are able to safely navigate in that space. So that was it for State Street. And then accessible parking is an area where we've made a lot of progress, not only in the last year, but the last couple of years. When the State Street closure happened, we got a lot of input from the AAC about the need for accessible parking closer to downtown, not just in the parking lots. So we've done that. We've put in a lot of blue zones in the 0-100 block right up against State Street, which is a convenient access point to get to the promenade and to businesses. But there's other locations as well that have been pointed out to us of important need from the committee. There's a couple highlighted here that have been recently installed. One is right outside City Hall. There's a blue zone there. But you can see in this photo, it's nice to have the blue zone, but if you're in a wheelchair, there's actually not a ramp at that crosswalk. So I think you have to go around a ways to get up onto the sidewalk and get towards City Hall. So there's still work to be done. Those are things that are identified in the transition plan. But it's still helpful to have that blue zone installed. And then the other location you can see there is at Alameda Park. And there's actually, at this point, there's now 4 different blue zones at that intersection. So we've made a lot of improvement to that area, which is very popular for all members of our community. And then upcoming, I list Lower Chapala. That's another area. We recently did a major repave on Chapala Street, and Lower Chapala actually has, rather than parallel parking, those are pull-in marked parking spaces. So we will be, when the striping takes place on that project, we will be including accessible parking spots in that area. Next, sidewalk access ramps. Because of our paving program, there's a requirement anytime we do an overlay or resurfacing, if there's not an access ramp or if the access ramp is not compliant, we need to bring that up to standard. So that's been a huge benefit for accessibility. Through Measure C, we've been doing a lot of pavement maintenance, and a big portion of that investment has gone to improving accessibility through access ramps. In the past year, it's been over 100 new or retrofitted access ramps, and this is just one example. I think it's up, is this Garden Street? I just took the picture the other day and not even, yeah, it is on Garden Street. It's in the area of the Mission, and a bunch have been installed in that neighborhood, but really throughout town because our paving has been everywhere. But these are always great improvements for all individuals. And then outreach and education. There's been a few things that have been brought to my attention as ADA coordinator, items of concern from an accessibility standpoint. The most recent of which were actually the placement of open house signage in the public right-of-way and on sidewalks, potentially blocking access on the sidewalk. So I wrote a letter to the SP Realtors Association and was able to connect with them, and they understand. And really, it was about my communication to them was just, you know, make sure you communicate to your members if they put that kind of signage up. Obviously, I think there's a sign ordinance discussion which is separate from that, but my message was just keep things off the sidewalk. They need to be off the sidewalk. Similarly, I reached out to Signature Valet Company for some other issues related to accessibility. And really when I do that, the goal is to educate, because there isn't often an easy enforcement avenue to go down on that. And a lot of times it's just the awareness that needs to be raised, and we see behaviors changed. And then for myself, as I mentioned before, the ADA Coordinator Network and the Pacific ADA Network, I actually attended a disability summit that was put on just in the past couple of weeks down in Ventura County, and that was really helpful. I sat in on a couple of important sessions. One of them was about micro-transit, so that was interesting to hear what some other agencies have done in that area, which is something I know we've been talking about. All right, a couple more things here. Special events continues to be an item of interest with the Access Advisory Committee. We have an ad hoc group that's been meeting pretty regularly throughout the year with the staff in Parks and Rec who coordinate with the special events. And we've made progress. I think there's still some opportunities there. We have a lot of recurring, we just heard from Film Festival, that's a recurring kind of special event that takes place every year. So there's good opportunities with those recurring events to take lessons we've learned from one year and apply that to the next, to just always be looking for where we can improve accessibility. So I mentioned Film Festival, Fiesta, and Solstice are the other two that we hear the most about. All right, and then on capital projects, I mentioned earlier that I was going to talk a bit more about this. We do bring capital projects to the Access Advisory Committee for input, but there isn't a formal process to do that. So not every project makes it there, maybe not every project gets there at the exact best timing, and we do only meet quarterly. So we do our best, but sometimes the committee feels like they're finding out about projects later than they would like to. So as city engineer, I have a pretty good awareness of all the projects that are happening, and I'm working with the committee to try to figure out how we can bring projects to them at the right point in time so that their input can be incorporated most easily into the project. Some of the projects that they did hear about in the past year, though, were all of our active transportation program projects. We had a team from Streets Engineering present on that. Those are the three big projects you've, I'm sure, heard about and are aware about. There's been public meetings on some of those in the past couple of weeks. Police station project, Alice Keck Park Memorial Gardens. There's some Memorial Garden, there's some work there. And then the waterfront bathrooms, that was an interesting discussion that took place, and right now it sounds like that project is on hold at the moment, but there is some interest for sure from the Access Advisory Committee to do the accessibility improvements associated with that project. All right, so winding down here, the goals for the Access Advisory Committee, and a lot of these are repeats from year to year, but obviously improving accessibility throughout the city, especially in the public right-of-way and on city property, raising awareness of ADA deficiencies on private property that's open to the public, encouraging community collaboration on accessibility issues, and I think that's part of this recognition that you're seeing this last couple of years. And then professional training, so that would be developing and providing ongoing professional in-service training for ADA liaison staff. So I didn't mention that to you all. So I'm the city's ADA coordinator. Each department has an ADA liaison. So this would be training for those individuals. And then, as we talked about just in the previous slide, providing input on design, development, and execution of key capital projects at the right time in the design development. And then lastly, priorities. A lot of these you've heard about already, the ADA transition plan update, so that's an ongoing work effort. That will continue to be an ongoing effort, but there's also this interest in a right-of-way focused transition plan, which we do not have. And then public transit on State Street, I mentioned that already. Special event permitting, you heard about that. Accessible parking, we continue to work with the AAC, and they have been really good about providing lists of additional locations that would be helpful. And then education, training, and enforcement as well. There is always an interest in parking enforcement, and often I get asked to check in on the details, the stats on how PD has been doing in that area. So that's all that I had today. If there are any questions, I'm available. And then I just want to let everyone know as well, we do have an email address that was created for accessibility matters, and it's just ada@santabarbaraca.gov. Thank you.
All right, before we get into questions and comments, since there is no action on it, Mr. Clerk, are there any speakers online for this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have one speaker online.
Okay.
Karen Luckett, if you can unmute yourself and speak, please. Karen Luckett.
Hi. Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Karen Luckett. I'm a member of the AAC. And it's been my focus that we make not just indoor places per the ADA regulations, but outdoor special events accessible. And last year and this year, I personally put in a lot of effort to designate a space and get some covered canopies so that the disabled community from Hillside and Momentum could come and enjoy our wonderful parades for the first time, some of them in their life. So I just, the city was accommodating in providing extra parking in the what is it, behind the community pool and bathrooms. But I'm hoping the city can find a policy or a mandate in the Parks Department to accommodate whenever there's a parade, a designated space with parking, bathrooms, and covered canopies, like we do for the VIPs, but we don't need VIP treatment. We just need a space. So hopefully that can happen in the next coming year. Thank you.
Thank you. Further speakers online?
No further speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Steve Johnson.
Thank you for this serendipity moment. I'd like to raise some awareness of a deficiency, and that would be the trimming of palm trees throughout the city. If any of you have been around downtown or anywhere where there's palm trees, we're suffering from a tsunami of palm dates on the sidewalks. It's a hazard to anyone who's got impaired mobility. My wife uses a cane. She refuses to use the sidewalk. For the last 3 months, it's been this way. I've called the city asking, when are the palm trees going to get trimmed? They said, don't worry, we'll put you on a list. That was 3 months ago. The same thing happened the previous 2 years. I know what that list does. That's the circular file list. I paid to have the palm trees trimmed myself the last 2 years. This year, I can't seem to get a contractor to show up. I really wish this program would consider this as a deficiency that they report on next year. Thank you.
All right, very good. So since there's no action, we can just questions, comments, whatever you'd like. Ms. Snedden.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. I'll have some comments too, but just some questions to start. I guess the first one is, at what point will the AAC be looking at the State Street master plan or interim plan? And Jim Marston, is his official role to be giving input in the interim, or is he also like officially informing the master planning efforts?
Councilmember Snedden, I believe his role is more on the interim operations. So it is a good question you bring up for the master planning effort, how we can best involve the AAC in that process.
And so have they been involved, or will it go to their committee at the same time it's going to HLC? It just seems like a good idea to get their input before we put something out that we maybe haven't thought of something there.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. We definitely want to get their input. There isn't, like I said, with the other capital projects, this is can be a problem at times. There isn't a formal process or requirement to go and get their input before you can move on to the next step. So I can reach out to Tess Harris and coordinate on, she has come and presented to the committee in the past, and just see if when it makes sense to do another update.
I think especially on the city project, that it's not sort of, I'm not talking about a formal every project going, but certainly I think we could invite their input while things are in process. And that brings me to another question. You mentioned, and I've heard this from members of the committee too, the process of agendizing items. What is the formal process?
Councilmember Sneddon, so the process for putting an item on the agenda, staff creates the agenda for the Access Advisory Committee, but I do have a monthly meeting with the chair and the vice chair, so we're coordinating and talking about what is likely to be on the next quarterly meeting on the agenda. So if they're hearing from members of the public or other members from the committee, they're putting items kind of on the table. I'm talking about things I'm hearing about from staff, and we discuss those and we begin to develop an agenda. I actually have a meeting with the chair and the vice chair in 2 days.
Thank you. So that's the formal process. The chair and the vice chair would then meet with you as the coordinator to then develop the agenda. Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes that gets a little sideways, I think. Okay. And then you mentioned microtransit. So since you mentioned it, microtransit, mini transit, transit on State Street, public transit, and I will just, again, to Jim Marston, but and to the whole committee, that we also want public transit on State Street, and I'll mention including the waterfront and the train station because the committee always mentions those 2 points. How close are we to addressing that? I see it's a priority, so is that like going to take us a month, a year? Where are we in that?
Yeah, I don't have an update on that. I'm not sure if we have the right people in the room right now to provide the update.
And so the Access Advisory Committee would be giving input into that discussion also?
Yes.
Okay. I just think it'd be great to keep getting their input all along the way as much as possible. And then you mentioned, we won't talk about it, I think, because it's Brown Act, but you mentioned the e-bike ordinance that's in the works. So just the question, are we consulting the committee for input on what they think might benefit that ordinance?
That's something that I can talk about, like I mentioned, with the chair and the vice chair call. That could be an agenda item at the next quarterly meeting if it makes sense timing-wise based on where the ordinance is at.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll save it for comments, but I think what I'm getting at is it'd be so great to be inviting their input all along the way for these projects rather than sort of an after input just as we're building them. And then I'm just going to give you the opportunity to speak about the palm trees or tree maintenance as it speaks to accessibility.
Yes, Councilmember Sneddon, that was actually an interesting comment. I'm sure we've all experienced that, whether it's those dates that get dropped or some of the other seed pods, which can be hazards in the right-of-way. I would be curious to know the location in this particular situation. We do have a very extensive tree trimming program, which is that's housed in the Parks and Rec department, but we do invest a lot of funds to that program. It's interesting to think about tree trimming, though, from an accessibility standpoint, and it's possible that certain locations may need a higher frequency if there's a recurring concern.
Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question on the work we're doing that's pretty capital project intensive, where you're putting a ramp in addition to a blue space. Is there any traction on adjusting handicap placards so you don't have just a lesser mobility person with a handicap placard taking the space that we've spent a lot of money on to make sure that a wheelchair accessible access out the right side of the vehicle is available? You follow what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
Pretty soon I'll just need a placard to just be able to walk, but there are plenty of people that we're setting this up just specific for wheelchair use, but then somebody can tie it up for a period of time and just take that right out of the option.
Yes, I hear what you're saying, Councilmember Jordan, and the placards that people have, they don't distinguish between what type of disability somebody has, and you're right, there's a wide range. I think the point is to have enough of these blue zones so that hopefully anybody who's in a wheelchair can park close to where they need to get to. But then others who have mobility challenges, who maybe don't need a ramp, still will also be able to have a place to park.
But that's a point you could take to the groups you work with in the industry or state level too. I mean, it would be nice to have as many as possible to solve that, but the ones at the ramps are coming at a much, much, much higher cost than just some paint on a curb, right?
That's correct.
Thanks.
Mr. Friedman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You said we could, since it's not action, we can do comments as well. I'll just have some brief comments then. First, thank you, Mr. Demore, and to all the members of the committee for all the great work that you're doing to improve access throughout the city. It's greatly appreciated, and to our public commenters tonight for your organizations. It means a lot, and some of the examples right here, just the ability for the public to be able to access our city council meetings with the addition of the lowered tier there so that the microphones are lower and they can it's just important because now they have that opportunity to speak during public comment, which they didn't have before. And then the 102 new access ramps, that the ability to invest there, when we're investing in the roads, you get the economies of scale of rather than having to go out and do it later, which would cost a lot more, and you'd be tearing up some roads as well that were just done. So that's amazing. That's 102 intersections that are accessible to everyone in the community now, and it's extremely important. And that gets to the point, it's all the little things that were done. In that report, you said there's 3,400. As long as we are moving forward and addressing those, we're not going to address all 3,400 within a year or even 5 years, but we're making progress, and that's the important part of it. And all those add up to make it more inviting and more welcoming for all our members of the community. And in particular, I want to call out Bob for speaking tonight. I know I've gotten to know you in a different way at the grocery store quite often, and I enjoy when Bob comes in and he needs assistance to help grocery shopping, but it's very fascinating because we have these great conversations, but he's well prepared. But it just shows that the extra care that we take as a community makes everyone feel invited. And I really enjoy our conversations at the grocery store, Bob, when we're grocery shopping for you together. So thanks for being here tonight, and appreciate all the work that everyone's doing to reduce those 3,400 down to as many as possible, as few as possible, sorry.
All right, very good. Ms. Sneddon.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. I didn't realize we could do comments also. So I really want to congratulate the sort of recipients of recognition who are in the room, and I think especially coming in and speaking, but the gift that you're giving to the community beyond what we're even able to see or fully recognize all that you do. So I just really wanted to acknowledge what you're doing here, and thank you for speaking. And then a few comments to Mr. Demore. Thank you for expanding the theater ramps, not just with the Granada, but recognizing the need for that for the other theaters, the Arlington and Newvic, and people have been talking about that for a while, and I know the committee's been talking about it for a while. So thank you for coming up with a creative solution to that without it being major overhaul, but to address the need quickly. I'll just voice my support again that we really need that public transit on State Street that's accessible and includes the waterfront and the train station. And I know you're working on that, but I think the committee is mentioned that so many times, and just reiterating that. And then it would be great to get their input on the e-vehicle bike safety questions, just from the perspective of mobility and things we might not be thinking of or seeing with that too. And then also thank you for all the continued attention to the signage and to education, and letting people know about that. And then on the permitting, I support the priorities that are laid out by the Access Advisory Committee. And then I do like the idea of, with the special event permitting, to consider with parades, some designated parking area, restrooms, canopy. Those were nice ideas. I'm not sure all of them, but maybe that's something that the committee could look at and give input on. So thank you for making this an active committee who is coming into public comment and speaking on a variety of issues. So really important role you're fulfilling. Thank you.
All right, very good. And if there are no further comments or questions, we'll go ahead and close this item. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. DeMore. Thank you for Joe. Grace, Bob, thank you both. Appreciate it. And we'll move on to council staff communication, council member engagements. Anybody get engaged? Ms. Snedden.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. I attended the Avocado Festival
Here we go.
opening night, and I realize it's not in the city, but it really just made me realize how fun local events and festivities are. So, yeah, had fun there.
All right, anyone else? Mr. Gutierrez.
I attended the Bread and Roses event on Sunday at City College. And that was pretty awesome to be able to see all these great people that care about progressive ideas in the community come together to raise money. So thank you.
Mr. Friedman.
Thank you. I also attended Avocado Festival on the opening night. It was great, a lot of fun, and it's good to just support all the communities on the South Coast. We're all one larger regional community, and it was a lot of fun. And then also attended Malcolm Gladwell at the Granada, famous journalist, and he was here, so that was very interesting perspectives he had, and we're blessed to have the Granada here. And then last week I attended Santa Barbara Beautiful Annual Awards, and congratulations to all the recipients who received awards that day for making our city what it is. Open space, homes, and others, and businesses and individuals who really contribute to the fabric of our community, and it was great to have you all recognized at that annual event. Thank you to Santa Barbara Beautiful for recognizing that. Thank you.
All right, very good. And I was a guest at Laguna Blanca speaking to 5th through 11th graders. They wanted to talk about civility and decorum in public forums, particularly what we see what's going on today in Washington, D.C., which is the antithesis of all that. So they were a very engaged, very exciting crowd. And then that afternoon or that evening was Earl Menace's birthday party with Patty Smith. And the reason why that was special, because Earl has produced a lot of shows that have been free to the public, and he's also recently donated $100,000 to the Daniel Bryant Center over there on Santa Barbara Street, and Laguna thing. Anyway, and I know that Earl wasn't born with a silver spoon. We went to rival high schools, and no silver spoons existed in that part of the country. So, very, very nice event. And with that, we will move on to a closed session. Mr. Clerk, do you have something to read for us there?
Yes, item 8, subject conference with city attorney, existing litigation, government code subsection 54956.9 D1 as described in agenda item 8.
Okay, very good. We will adjourn this meeting, go to closed session, and we do not anticipate a report out. See you next week.